So now that we have a general understanding as to what CSS is and its role in web design, I want to go ahead and just take a look at some preferences inside of Dreamweaver when it comes to writing CSS. Now, if you don't have a strong desire to write CSS code yourself, there are some wonderful tools inside of the program that allow you to work visually with CSS. That being said, you do need to have a basic understanding as to how the code works. Nevertheless, what I want to do is show you some preferences inside of Dreamweaver that give you control over how the code is generated. Again, if you know CSS, this will be incredibly helpful. If you don't, it'll probably be a little less helpful. So the first thing that we want to do is come over to the Dreamweaver menu, and here we want to choose Preferences. Now on the Windows side, you'll go to the Edit menu, and from there, you'll choose Preferences. Now inside the Preferences dialog box, we have several different options when it comes to code. What we want to do is come over here and take a look at the CSS Styles category. You'll notice in the right-hand side, there's an option for using shorthand notation when creating CSS rules. This simply means that fewer lines of code will be generated. I typically come over here and select all of these options except font. And the reason for that is font has several different properties associated with it. You have font family, you have font weight, there's all sorts of different values. So if you're using shorthand notation and you don't specifically assign a value to one of the different properties, it'll get a default value. And this can be troublesome when working with a cascade of styles. You have the potential of overriding a style with a default value without you having that specific intention. Again, if that doesn't make a ton of sense because you don't work with CSS, don't worry about it. Additionally, you have the option for using shorthand notation when editing CSS rules. So again, what I typically do here is just select this option right here, which is according to the settings above. So if I have some CSS that doesn't use shorthand notation, but I come in and edit the margin or padding values, Dreamweaver will automatically convert those properties to shorthand notation, making your code appear more consistent. Anytime you edit a CSS file, it'll automatically be open. I find this to be helpful. Other people find it to be annoying. It's completely up to you. If you find it to be a distraction, just come over here and deselect this, but I'm going to keep it selected for this course. This next section's a little bit confusing because it's talking about a CSS panel that no longer exists. If you're upgrading from previous versions of Dreamweaver and you've worked with the CSS panel, know that the features found within that panel have been replaced with the brand new CSS Designer, which is a panel that we're going to look at in the next movie. I'm currently recording this with the beta version of Dreamweaver, so I fully expect that this section of the Preferences dialog box will be removed when there's a Creative Cloud update. Finally, down here towards the bottom, you can add vendor prefixes when working with gradients inside of CSS. We don't really have to worry about this right now, so I'm just going to leave this set to the defaults. When we work with gradients, we can always come back and modify these settings. Something else that you may want to be aware of is code coloring. If you come over to the category section and choose code coloring, you then want to come over here for the document type and choose CSS. At this point, you could come over and click Edit Coloring Scheme. This will open up a dialog box, and here you can control how the code is highlighted with different colors by simply selecting the command over here on the left-hand side and choosing the color and any other attribute here on the right-hand side. Now we're going to leave everything set to the defaults, but if you have a particular coloring scheme that you like to work with, this is where you can change that scheme. Now again, if you don't code a lot, this doesn't make a lot of sense. This really is for people that work a lot with the code. As you work more and more with Dreamweaver, though, I promise you, you'll spend more and more time in the code view. I'm going to come over here and cancel this. Something else that I want to show you is something called code format. If you come over here and select this category, you have some options for controlling the tab size and the spaces when indenting your code. You also have line break types and default tag cases. If you want your tags to be uppercase or lowercase, you can control all of these options here. One thing that I'm going to do for this course is I'm going to come over to the fonts category. And inside the fonts category, you'll notice there's a code view section We're using a font called Source Code Pro. I'm fine with that. What I'm going to do for this course is increase the size to 12 point. Now, you may not want to do that in a real-world situation. I'm doing this now because as you look at the code on my screen, I want it to be as legible as possible. And making the size a little bit bigger will ensure that you'll be able to view the code just fine in these videos. But again, if you want to control this on your own machines, maybe you like your code to be a larger size or even a smaller size, those adjustments can be made here inside the Preferences dialog box. So once you're happy setting all of your preferences for your code, you can come over and click OK. Once you click OK, you're going to be ready to start creating content inside of Dreamweaver.